Welcome, everyone. Today we're tackling a really important question about rights restoration. What happens when federal and state laws don't quite see eye to eye? Let's get into it. All right, let's jump right in. This is probably the number one question we get about the federal relief process, the 925C. If the federal government says you're good to go, does your state just have to fall in line? It's a point of confusion for so many people. To really get a handle on this, we're going to use a simple idea I call the two-door concept. This analogy is going to make everything much clearer. I want you to imagine your gun rights are locked behind two totally separate doors. The first one, that's the federal door, and the U.S. government holds the key. The second one is the state door, and that one's controlled by, you guessed it, your state. Now, the most important thing to get is that these are two separate legal systems, but, and this is a big but, they don't exist in a vacuum. What happens with one system definitely impacts the other. So, let's talk about unlocking that first door. When you go through the whole 925C process and get approved, what have you really accomplished? It's actually pretty straightforward, but incredibly powerful. When the Department of Justice approves your relief, the federal firearms ban on you is officially lifted. From the federal government's perspective, you are no longer a prohibited person. And you have to realize just how huge this is. For over 30 years, there really was no viable path to get this done. This process is a complete game changer. But opening that federal door is only half the battle. Now we have to face that second door, and it's absolutely crucial to understand what federal relief does not do. A 925C approval doesn't just act like a magic wand and make state laws disappear. Your state has its own constitution and its own set of rules, and this federal action doesn't automatically force them to change. But here's the thing. What it does do is create something we call federal alignment. And honestly, this is your most powerful tool in this entire journey. So, what exactly is this federal alignment? Let's define it, because understanding this concept is your true advantage. Think of federal alignment as an official green light from the U.S. government. They are formally recognizing that whatever was holding you back has been resolved. And historically, that's a signal that states pay very close attention to. Okay, but how does this alignment actually work in the real world? How does it put you in the best possible position to get that second door, the state door, open? It's like a domino effect. First, the federal block is removed. Once that's gone, the state's whole argument for its own restriction starts to look pretty weak. And when that justification crumbles, courts and lawmakers tend to move toward aligning with the federal government's decision. So why do states usually come around? Well, a lot of their own restrictions are based on a person's federal status in the first place. They also want to avoid messy legal conflicts with federal findings. It's often just easier and makes more legal sense to update their own standards. All right. Let's bring this all home. We've talked about doors and alignment, but what does this all mean for you personally? Let's get to the simple truth of the matter. So let's ask our original question one more time. If you get that 925C relief, does it actually make your state play ball? And here's the bottom line. No, it doesn't force your state to comply overnight. What it does do is put you in the strongest legal position you can possibly be in. It takes the single biggest barrier off the table. Now, you might be thinking, if this isn't an automatic win, then why even bother? And that's a fair question. Let's look at why this path is so incredibly important. Seriously, if the state can still have its own set of rules and its own process, then what's the point of going through the whole federal ordeal first? Because federal relief is a foundation. It's the starting point for everything else. Trying to get state restoration without it is an uphill battle, but with it, that goal becomes so much more achievable. And this is exactly what we mean when we say legal gangster justice tech turns knowledge into power, and that power into freedom. And just as a reminder, everything here is for educational purposes. This is not legal advice. Our mission is to help you understand the law, not to be your attorney. So, if you're ready to see the entire roadmap and understand what the full process looks like, here's what you can do next. Just head on over to legalgangster.com. We've broken down the entire 925C process into a step-by-step guide that's easy to follow. You'll find templates, checklists, and all the resources you need to navigate this journey.